How Pumice Lost Her Wings. After Pumice died, everyone felt very sad. No one felt like playing or fishing. About a week later, the Dragon Master spread out his cloak so the little dragons could cuddle up to him. The older dragons lay close, sunning themselves on the rocks. The Dragon Master's cloak was very special. If he pulled it over them at night, the stars came out, and exciting dreams filled the dragons' heads. When he spread it on the ground, they were about to hear tales that would make their spikes tingle with delight. The Dragon Master smiled at his friends as he stroked their blue-green scales. "You are about to hear a very important story," he said. "A true one. And today, Treasure will do the telling." Treasure sat right in the middle of the Dragon Master's cloak with her tail curled and head held high. When everyone was still, she began, her voice squeaking a little with nerves. "Pumice forbade the telling of this tale while she was alive," she said. "It's the story of how she lost her wings. Long ago, when the world was made from earth, water, wind, and fire, many strange creatures were born. Each one was given a special friend, a master or a mistress to look after them. The terrible servant Leviathan has her mistress, as do the wild unicorns, and the behemoth has his master. As you know, the behemoth's task is to guard fiery secrets deep under the earth. There, in the ever-seething ocean of molten lava, he is king. One day the monster looked out of a volcano crater and saw our green fields and forests. The behemoth was jealous. He wanted to own all this too, so he decided to pour fire over the world and make it his home. The behemoth master thought this was a good idea. He liked power, and he wanted to use the secrets of the earth and sea to rule over the unicorns, Leviathan, and even us dragons. So between them, they decided to make war. In those days, Flamethrower was only a hatchling, and Fizzle's hearing was so sharp he could hear a worm wriggle a mile away. "That must have been a long time ago," muttered Sparky. Ember poked the young dragon with a claw. "Be quiet." Ignoring them, Treasure continued. In those days, Pumice was a cross little dragon who was only good at eating fish and moaning. Nothing was ever right or good enough for her. She was only really happy when people were admiring her beautiful silver wings. It was nothing to her that the behemoth was on the march, nor did she care about the evil magic woven by his treacherous master, who was misusing the deep secrets entrusted to him. The monster and his master belched fire, ripped up rocks, and crashed continents one into another. Wherever they went, the face of the earth was scorched and ruined. All the dragons, even the little ones, flew to turn the behemoth back. They had to protect the midnight forest with all its animals. Only one dragon didn't go to the battle. That was fussy little Pumice, who refused to do anything to help. She was cross because the others weren't at home looking after her. She didn't see any point in chasing the behemoth. That was the Dragon Master's job. Day after day she sat sulking by the sea, wishing the noise of battle would go away and that someone would come back. One rainy night, when Pumice was all alone at home, 5 sopping wet goblins trooped into her cave. Without noticing Pumice was curled up in the shadows at the back, they lit a fire. These woodland creatures usually live under fallen trees and down little holes, so Pumice couldn't make out why they had come to Kilve. She had a feeling they weren't very friendly, so she stayed very quiet and still, listening to what they were saying. "I don't understand where the dragons can be," said one. "The master will kill us if we don't find them," replied another. "No, he won't," said a third. "He'll pull our wings and legs off one by one, just as he promised." The others fell silent and shivered at the thought of such a terrible fate. Pumice shrank back, well out of sight. She felt cold and afraid. She was certain they weren't talking about the Dragon Master. He would never do anything like that. Well, where are the dragons? Repeated the first goblin. We have to find them quickly. They're all that stand in the way of the behemoth's total victory tomorrow. The first goblin beckoned his fellows closer. Our orders are to keep the dragons busy here so our army can burn the midnight forest and destroy the Dragon Master. Then the whole world will be a burning desert and the behemoth will be our king. But I like our forest, protested a young goblin. I don't remember the Dragon Master being dreadful, piped up another. I remember him being kind, understanding. Bah, kindness is weak, scoffed a third voice. The behemoth and his master know, and here he whispered, wonderful secrets. But what sort of secrets? Gasped the others. Secrets from the depths of the earth, secrets from before time began, special secrets the wishy-washy Dragon Master is too scared to use. Tell us, begged the others. No, he snapped. These things are forbidden to all but the powerful. Now, let us find food and wood. The dragons must be hunting. They'll return soon and we must be ready for them. And they left the cave. Pumice sat rigidly for a few minutes. Then she made up her mind. She must find the Dragon Master and warn him. The war had come to her. She had to act. At the back of Pumice's home there was a narrow crevice which opened into an underground passage some way inland. She had often explored it when she was very tiny. It was tight then. She knew she had little chance of getting through it now she was older and bigger, but she had to try. Short of fighting the woodland goblins, and their teeth looked very sharp, the crack was her only escape. Luckily, Pumice had eaten so little while she'd been sulking she'd become very thin. Folding her wings tightly, she managed to wriggle her way along and out to a windy hillside, well out of sight of Kilve and the goblins. It was early morning and still raining. She didn't have the faintest idea how to find the Dragon Master. She hadn't seen anyone for days and she never felt so alone. She tried to roar and breathe fire to make herself brave, but tears trickled down her nose and put the flames out, leaving nasty-tasting smoke in her mouth. So, taking a deep breath, Pumice spread her wings and flew into the sky, wheeling left and right until she saw smoke rising over the farthest reaches of the midnight forest. She set her course that way. Grey clouds were piling inland on a stiff breeze. She thought, if I hide in the clouds, I might find the others without being seen. She'd never flown that high before, but up she soared and hovered just inside the grey mist. Soon she could see the cause of the smoke. The dragons were there, locked in a terrible fire battle, with all sorts of strange creatures that she had never seen before, friends of the behemoth from the deepest earth. But the cloud she was hiding in was scuttling beyond the battle. Should I break cover and try and reach my friends? Pumice wondered. But the west wind whispered, keep going. So on and on she flew. The clouds around her became thicker and blacker until she could hardly see. A stench of burning and sulphur filled the air, and Pumice could hardly fly for coughing. At last she heard a shout. It was a voice she knew. Could it be the Dragon Master? Coming, she tried to call, but the words stuck in her throat as the smoke burned her lungs. Down she plummeted. She couldn't breathe for fumes. She couldn't see through the darkness. All around echoes rumbled. Was she inside something? Then came another shout. She speeded her steep spiral down until a fire glowed. Heat scorched her belly and wings. She was flying into the heart of a volcano. Flames rippled over her as she plunged. She called again. Then came a reply. She squinted into the burning light. A dark shape was huddled on a ledge. The Dragon Master! And wading through the molten lava towards him was the heaving bulk of the behemoth. and on the monster's shoulder stood his evil master, swathed in a blood-red cloak with his arms raised. He pointed a short staff at the Dragon Master and chanted words that crashed like rocks. The Dragon Master wrapped his cloak of stars tightly around him. His wild hair was shining red from the glowing fires. He was trapped and afraid, but above the volcano's roar and the beasts howling, Treasure heard him shout, "I don't want your secrets, they are poison." The Behemoth Master laughed. If you don't work with me, I will kill you. Then all your precious dragons will be in my power. It's a simple choice. Through the smoke and gloom, Pumice saw the Dragon Master look up as if searching for a chink of real light amid the searing fireglow. "Come, west wind, and blow," he called clearly. Pumice didn't hesitate. Swiftly she swooped down, and with one flick of her wing she knocked the Behemoth Master backwards. He fell for a long time, a black spinning dot against the boiling white heat. Then he was gone. The Behemoth stared stupidly. He didn't seem to understand what was happening. Without his master, he was only a great, lumbering beast. Pumice hovered next to the Dragon Master, who scrambled onto her back. As soon as his arms were around her neck, she leapt up, climbing towards the sky that she knew was somewhere above. Her wings and belly burned. She couldn't breathe and was losing height. The Dragon Master was too heavy for her. "Help!" she whispered into the stinking dark. And suddenly there came a mighty roar from below as the Behemoth realized he'd been robbed of both his master and his prey by a scrawny dragoness. He belched flames and smoke, catching Pumice in its full force. But the blast tossed them upwards and out into the open air. With the last fragments of her wings, Pumice glided to a safe landing on cool, green grass. Treasure stopped and swallowed hard. Then she burst into tears, so the Dragon Master took up the tale. "We were found by the mistress of the unicorns," he began. "Her magical creatures have the power to heal with one touch of their horns. With the help of this lady and her beasts, I recovered quickly, but what was left of Pumice's wings had to be cut off, and the unicorns healed the stumps. Then they ran to find the other dragons so we could be carried back to Kilve." There was a long silence. At last Morris whistled. "Wow! Fancy Pumice defeating the Behemoth Master. We never realized she was so special." The Dragon Master smiled and rubbed Morris's scales in that nice scratchy place between his wings. "She was no different from you. Pumice was just a sulky little dragon who wouldn't clean her cave, and when the time came she saw something she had to do, and she did it." "I could never do anything like that," Clarice shook her head sadly. "You never know what you can or can't do until the time comes," the Dragon Master said sadly. Then he stood up and shook out his cloak, spilling little dragons everywhere. "And talking of time," he announced, "the sun is setting. I must light the stars, and all good dragons must go to bed." So that is just what they did.